I think we can start now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, Teresa.
A warm good evening to one and all present here. Respected Principal Dr. Chakojo sir, today's resource person Dr. Hemamala ma'am, IQAC coordinator Dr. Libison sir, SECTEI coordinator Dr. Sindo sir, and all others faculty members present here. As we all know, today we have gathered here for the 12th Faculty Development Program organized by Chavara Center for Teaching Excellence and Educational Innovation. I welcome you all to this wonderful gathering, and without delay, let's start our program. So we begin with our welcome address. For that, I invite our beloved principal, Dr. Chakojo sir. Sir, now the stage is yours.
Thank you. The resource person of the day, Dr. Hemamala K, Associate Professor, Operations, Amrita School of Business, Coimbatore. The coordinator of the St. Chavara Center, Dr. Sindo Jacob. The IQAC coordinator of the college, Dr. Libison KB. Other faculty members and participants of this 12th FDP from various parts of the country. The St. Chavara Center for Teaching The St. Chavara Center for Teaching Excellence and Educational Innovation started its journey about a year ago with the objective of introducing excellence in teaching and innovation in higher education methods, which will benefit all the stakeholders in higher education. The endeavors of the center will benefit teachers, administrative staff, and of course, students. This is a series where we focus on teachers, where we offer a faculty development program for the benefit of the faculty members. As you know, we select a topic that is of relevance to the faculty members each month, and it is offered as an online lecture every month. Today, we have a very interesting topic, which is leveraging assessments for deeper learning. As the title of the topic itself indicates, for deeper learning, assessment is very, very much important. As you know, assessment is key in any higher education system to measure the performance of the students. It measures the learning outcomes. It gives feedback for improvement. It helps in assessment of quality. It helps to personalize and individualize the learning process. And it also helps in giving personalized motivational techniques for different students, for improving student engagement, classroom engagement, and it also helps in bringing out accountability and transparency in the higher education scenario. Today, we have an eminent resource person for this program, who is Dr. Hemamala, who is a faculty of Amrita School of Business, Coimbatore. Since she will be introduced formally after this, I'm not venturing into that, but we met at a conference organized by Confederation of Indian Industry at Coimbatore, and I requested Dr. Hemamala whether she will be interested in giving a lecture for the St. Chavara Center, and she readily agreed. In fact, I was very much impressed by her presentation on a similar topic during the Confederation of Indian Industry conclave. So on behalf of St. Aloysius College, I extend a very warm welcome to Dr. Hemamala to this session. Welcome, ma'am. I also welcome all the participants who have joined from different parts of the country, and sometimes we even have participants from other parts of the world outside India. So I welcome all the participants to this program. And as you know, our modus operandi is after a brief introduction of the resource person will deliver the lecture for 50 to 60 minutes, and we will have 5 to 10 minutes of interaction, 10 to 15 minutes of interaction. So you are requested to come up with your queries, which you can type in the chat box. I also welcome the faculty members and students, research scholars of the college, and other dignitaries who have joined this program. I wish all the very best for this program. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I'll give an introductory section about our resource person for the day. Dr. Hemamala K. She's an assistant professor at Amrita School of Business, Coimbatore. She has received her BE from PSG College of Technology, Coimbatore, her MBA from Bharatiya University, her MFT from Pondicherry Central University, and her PhD from Amrita University. She was associated with the CK Institute of Management, Coimbatore, as Assistant Dean in Academics. And she is the recipient of Rotary International Cultural Ambassadorial Scholarship. So we have an eminent and knowledgeable resource person for the day. She has an experience of almost 29 years in industry and academics. So without further delay, I invite her for today's session. Dr. Hemamala ma'am, now the stage is yours. Please.
Yeah. Good evening, all of you. I truly appreciate your interest in the topic and your presence as my audience this evening. I sincerely hope I'll be able to deliver some value here. As you know, assessments and learning are both vast areas, so vast we actually need a full-length workshop and not just a 50-60 minute talk, all of us agree. But my objective this evening is only to point to all of us the huge learning potential that assessments have to offer if designed and executed with intention. I speak from my own practice here, from the little wisdom that I had gained from the mistakes I've made in all these years of teaching. And also from the vast wisdom of the scholars. I stand on the shoulders of those giants who had intensive and extensively researched the topic. Thank you. So may I share my presentation, Teresa?
Yes.
All right. I am sharing my entire screen here. Is this visible?
Yes, now it's okay. Now it's perfect.
All right. Thank you. So the topic for our evening today is leveraging assessments for deeper learning. And as I told you, the topic is vast, and you can take so many directions and can talk about so many dimensions. And based on my understanding of the purpose of this get together, this meeting, this talk, I had chosen to give a broad overview of what we as instructors can do within our courses and use the potential of assessments to improve the learning of our students. If at any point in time, if this coverage, the scope, the breadth and depth are kind of disappointing you, please do let me know. If you have any observations, we can always discuss that at the end of this talk. Thank you. So this is how we are going to go in this talk. We will look at 4 different sections. One, I would like to open this talk by clarifying the background concepts that we are discussing here, assessments and deep learning, so that we have common understanding of what we are talking about. And then after that, we will get into our business of what designing good assessments mean and how do we do that. And we'll spend a little more time on the most relevant topic of assessments and learning, which is the challenges that we as instructors face while we are designing and executing our assessments. And the last 5 or 10 minutes on listening to what comments, observations, and questions that you have. So let's look at the first segment, where I would like to kind of give a brief background of what we are doing here, what we are talking about here. Even before talking about assessments, let us understand what does deep learning mean. What I mean as deep learning here for this talk is the ability of the learner to create and not just to remember or recall content. It is the difference between basically passing a test and gaining knowledge about some stuff. It is about being intentional about learning process. Deep learning, because it is intentional, it is not only about what you learn, it is also about how you learn. And therefore, it comes from experience, it comes from immersion, and it cannot be coming from being told, lecturing, passive learning, telling, conveying. These are not the ones that can trigger deep learning. Like Elon Musk says, your knowledge must be planted and it should be growing like a tree. It's a tree of knowledge. And if we want to grow such a tree, we would not be walking around picking fruits and picking leaves or, not even branches. So our focus will be on how deep the roots grow, and from there, how strong the trunk emerges. If these are good, healthy, then the branches, leaves, etc., fruits, flowers, etc., will be taken care of. And that is exactly what is deep learning, which is learning from first principles, breaking a problem down to its fundamental elements. And it is about creating something from its fundamental building blocks, constructing from the ground up. And if we stop and look at what are the complaints, in fact, all the complaints that we hear from the industry, the businesses, the organizations that employ our graduates, they all ultimately point to the way our students learn, or may I say, the way we teach our students to learn. Superficial, what can I learn to earn the marks, strategic choice of topics, learn, write, read, write, and forget kind of a learning, against a complete intentional understanding of how I can create something out of the knowledge that I acquire from the course or a program. So with this clear, let's look at assessments. What, again, I mean by assessment here is a common understanding that all of us share. It's a systematic process that we develop in every course, in every program, to help students learning. Instructors, we need to kind of understand how students are learning, at what level their learning is. And in order to gain this knowledge about students' learning, we construct a system, we construct a set of processes Um, that is what I mean by assessments. And if we kind of get down to see, introspect ourselves to see why we truly do assessments, the immediate and top of the mind answer would be that I want to evaluate my students' performance. I want to measure it and document it. And I want to make inference about students' learning and development. I have to mark them. I have to evaluate them. I have to grade them. I have to categorize them into classes. I have to pass them. They have to graduate the program. So these, if I have to do this, then I need to know at what level is my students' academic readiness is, at what level is their learning progresses, and how much skills that they have acquired. So it is basically this measurement and documentation purpose that reigns supreme in most of our assessments that we do, in most of our courses, in most of our programs. But if we stop and think, is that all? Is that all we can do? The obvious answer is no. Who is going to help students develop thinking skills? If we are going to think that it is the lectures that I give inside the class, inside the classrooms, that are going to make students think critically, then I'm sadly mistaken. Evaluations, assessments help students develop critical thinking, analytical thinking, creative thinking, integrative thinking, basically all kinds of higher order cognitive skills. Without assessments, without feedback, it is extremely difficult for any learner, you, I, our students, to kind of pick up these skills that are required to, qualify us to be known as or called as intelligent beings. And assessments also help students construct their own knowledge. It is not like we make something, hand it over to them, placing it on a platter. We know that it doesn't work. And what stands with oneself is what we construct for ourselves. And students construct their knowledge piece by piece by integrating it with what they already know. Like we say to a 1-year-old, a toddler who wants to understand what does a tiger look like. Let's imagine that we are in a time like the one that I grew up, where we don't have access to television, National Geography, Animal Planet kind of a channels. Then if my mom wanted to make me understand how a tiger looks, the beast that lives in the wilderness, then she has to show me a cat, a domestic cat, which is a common sight, which the toddler knows, and then say, this tiger is like a cat, but it is this big, this long, this tall. So that is the construction of knowledge, because knowledge cannot be dropping from the sky. Our human minds are not wired or capable of picking up something that falls from the sky and adapting it, making it our own as an indigenous knowledge. That is not possible. And assessments help the students, learners, to construct their own knowledge. If we think again, lectures do that? No, it is assessments. And they help students to understand not just the content, but the process of their own learning. And that is the most valuable contribution of assessments, showing them the gaps in both content and in the weaknesses in their learning processes. And if I do not know where I am weak, where is there a gap between what I am doing and what is expected, then I will not be able to bridge that gap. Awareness is the beginning of all repairs, right? So assessments not only point out these gaps, but also to the many ways in which these gaps could be closed. Now, there is this evaluation, marking, grading, documenting, measuring kind of a purpose for which most of us, I was also guilty, many of us here in my school were also guilty of doing that, and ignoring the rest of it, the major potential that remained untapped. like somebody said, it is like wielding a, a a mighty sword, but using it for chopping onions is such a waste. Uh, and that is what we've been doing. Most of us are guilty of doing this with assessments because they have, as we discussed, an overwhelming influence of what students learn, how and how much they learn. Okay? So with this out of our way, let's look at um, the the design of assessments. As I told you, I speak largely from my practice and from the lessons that I learned from all the mistakes that I have done. So basically, we all understand we have all designed our courses, and when we design our courses, we also design assessments. We know what the students. We are going to tell our students what they have to do in order to gain marks, in order to earn marks, in order to better their grades, in order to pass. What is the minimum requirement? And what is the different, what is it that they have to do for different grades? There are marks and there are grades, and there are various things that students do. There are assignments, there are projects, there are presentations, whatnot, and also exams. So if I may categorize these assessments into two. One is all the assessments that we give throughout the course, during the program, during the term, trimester or semester, what they do. Most of us call that as continuous assessment work that we give and we grade and we mark the students. And then there is a term and examination. Sometimes there are institutions that also hold mid-term examinations. So these are kind of write the exam, take the marks, and then you cannot do anything about it. There is no reparation that the students can do. So I am categorizing these assessments for a reason. See, we do grade them both. We grade coursework, the continuous assessment part of the exam of the course that happens throughout the term, and the term and examination. We grade them both. But what we don't do in our end term examination is to give a feedback. And we do not have, the students do not have an opportunity to pick from the feedback and repair or improve their performance. That cannot happen in the end term examination. So we call such kind of assessments, which purely exist only for grading, marking, measuring, evaluating, and documenting, we call those as summative assessments. The rest of the assessments, of course, we do mark them, but we instructors get an opportunity to give feedback on students' performance. So such assessments are formative assessments because they form, brick by brick students' learning if they are designed and executed well. And these two, the difference is whether the students get an opportunity to better their performance in the course itself. So these two kinds of assessment they have different outlook, they have different, therefore they need different treatment while you are designing and executing. Students see coursework as a learning opportunity and end-term examination as a demonstration of their learning. So with this, I ask when I sit down to design an assessment, I ask this fundamental question: what do I want my students to learn in my course? If I asked, this was a survey question. There was a survey that was done on 1,867 teachers across various European universities who were sitting down to design their assessments in their courses. So they were asked, what is the question that you would want to ask before you set out to design your assessment? About overwhelming 72% of those people responded with this answer. I will ask this question: what do I want my students to learn in my course? Let's stop for a minute and think like an engineer who is designing a product. The first question the engineering team would ask is, What is it that my product has to do? What is the functionality of my product? What is the value that this product is going to offer to the stakeholders, the user? In our case, when we are setting out to design assessments, there is no single user. The customers are many. We have stakeholders. Students are the major stakeholders because it is about their performance and their learning. But their assessments and the information that comes out of their assessment is also consumed by other stakeholders. We, the instructors, are other major customers of this information. There is industry, the recruiters, there is institution. So these are all, and there is a society, So these are all key stakeholders. And when I am sitting down to design these assessment, what is the functionality? What is the value that I propose to give to these stakeholders? Unfortunately, the only stakeholder, most of us, as shown in the survey, the 72% of 1,867 faculty, they thought only about themselves as the stakeholders. Incidentally, so it can also be consumed by students, and that is all. Themselves, instructors, and the institution. And that is where is the key difference, and in the design of assessments. If you want assessments to be a major learning tool, then we need to ask a different question. What do I want my students to be able to do with the knowledge that they gain from my course? And it's not just a play of words, but if you stop and see, there is a huge difference in the meaning. So let us say, if I teach statistics, let us say, and I'm teaching probability distributions in statistics, and in the exams, I could be asking the students, I'll be claiming that my students will understand probability distribution, they will understand Poisson distribution, they'll understand normal distribution. That's knowledge. Even if you assume that they have gained this knowledge, how does one know? How does the instructor know that this knowledge is gained? So you're going to ask them to do something, right? How are you going to ask them to demonstrate their understanding of something? So this is a key difference, and this is a major pain point for many instructors, particularly the fresh ones who are designing their course learning outcomes. If we cannot define what we are wanting to do, what we want our students to be able to do, then this ambiguity is going to kill the effectiveness of the course itself. It will limit the learning of the students, because I, the instructor, am not sure. I'm only asking them to demonstrate. I am not clearly stating them what is my expectation. Education without application, they say, is only entertainment. So if you are asking them to understand something and walk out of my course, we are only entertaining them. We are not educating them. And the greater aim of education is not knowledge, but it is action. So when I ask this question, what is it that they will be able to do, given that they have understanding, then I am making the path very clear for assessments. Now I know what I need to assess. So let's take a look at very quickly how exams are designed and how coursework is designed. We are talking about two issues. Let's say if I have a very clearly defined learning outcome for my course, let's go back to our probability distributions in statistics. You say that my students will be able to apply, my students will be able to analyze, they will be able to evaluate. All those aspirations are found in your learning outcome. But if you are going to have questions in your question paper asking students what are the different kinds of distribution, well, a student who has given the correct answer remembers that and she recalls correctly. But is that what you want the student to do? Or you ask them or if you go one step ahead, And where are these distributions used? And the student answers correctly, she still remembers and she still recalls, because these are simply testing memory. And deeper learning, if you could recollect, is not about memory. It is not about comprehension. It is about creating something, your ability to create something with the knowledge that you have gained, and that is deeper. So, how are you going to know in an examination whether they are able to uh, rise above the comprehension level? When you give a scenario and then you ask what distribution is most appropriate, it is a very simple, plain, harmless question, but it has a good potential to uncover what the students have understood, what ability they have achieved to analyze, because the student thinks to answer this question. She comprehends the situation. It is a practice. She understands what's the problem. She analyzes, chooses, and she not only understands, but she uses it through thinking critically. So the point I'm trying to make here is this: are your exams testing what we intend to test? So that is where most of us slip and fail, because the claims that we make in our course outcomes do not show up when we are asking the questions in the examination, and care should be taken. And the second thing that I wish to touch upon is this. See, look, these are end-term examinations, ma'am, and I ask these questions, they answer these questions, and they walk out of the course. I may not even meet them again in a classroom in their program, that's all. I finish my business with them, they move on. And how is it that what they learn from here is going to help? But that is where we sadly go wrong. When you teach students problem solving in your statistics, the same example, when you teach them how to use normal distribution, etc., you don't teach them how to solve that statistics problem in that normal distribution. And that is another mistake many of us, when we are freshers, tend to do. Because when I teach my students how statistics problem solving, I teach them how to approach problem solving, not necessarily in statistics. It could be go across domain. It could be strategy, it could be operations, it could be finance, whatever, because problem solving is problem solving. There is a kind of thinking that one has to harvest and one has to develop that is common across the domain. It is domain agnostic because it is a competency. How do you know that there is a problem? How do you justify this problem? And what toolkit do you have to attack this problem? What are the alternatives you have of the several formulas that you have learned? Which one do you think, of the several distributions that you have learned, which one do you think will be most appropriate here? So when you teach generic skills competency, so this feedback could be taken away by the student, even if he leaves your subject and goes to another subject area. So are your exams helping your students pick up lessons beyond your domain is another question that we need to ask ourselves while we are designing exams. So if we move on to designing coursework, valuable opportunities to generate feedback comes from coursework. When you design assignments for coursework, there are three things that happen. The first one is, when you are asking your student to work on a project, work on a analysis report, to work on a field visit, to work on a complex assessment that requires higher order thinking skills, you are basically nudging students to take responsibility for their learning. they explore, they make mistakes, they come back to you, they check with their materials, and then they take ownership, and for which your feedback helps them move forward. The second thing that happens is when you are empowering students, when you are giving students their feedback, you make them not dependent on your feedback, but you are, as I said, empowering them with the ability to assess critically their own work and the work of their peers. When you assess your own work objectively, you seek feedback, you ask for feedback, you learn how to give self criticism, and then you learn from that, become better. That is a lifelong learning skill. When you do the same thing for a peer's performance, for your friends, for your classmates' performance, then that is a leadership skill. So when you construct these assessments with care and intention, you can actually teach them lifelong learning skills and leadership skills. And coursework design, if done properly, encourages deeper learning, because now the student would be most interested to correct his mistakes, and slowly they let go of their clutches on strategic learning, learning for tests, marking for tests. But it is our responsibility not to prep them for the test, but to get them to learn from the first principles. I have picked up a bunch of principles that will help us design a good quality coursework that will help students to learn deeply, actively, with engagement and with passion. The first thing that I have learned is that students need information on what good performance means to us. So you cannot simply ask them to be good boys, good students, but tell them what good means. You can't simply ask them to write a good report, a well written report, a clear report. What does this mean? You give description, you write it, you explain your expectations, describe, give examples, show them good examples, show them bad examples, so that students know what a good product means. See, if we are going to be very ambiguous and unclear about what we are expecting, and if we cannot state our expectations sharply, we don't have any right to expect the quote unquote good quality product from students. So this is the clearer you're exemplifying good performances, the better the students' quality of work is. The second thing is, when we give feedback information to the students, we need to make it rich, we need to make it comprehensive, we need to make it detailed. If we are going to be, this needs to be written better, this has to be clear, this is wrong, this is right, very good. So these are beautiful, fantastic. So these are all kind of feedback that have absolutely no value, because they don't have details that will help students. Neither will it point out what exactly went wrong, nor will it show how this mistake could be corrected. So feedback must be rich, and most importantly, there must not be a delay. There is a submission, and if we have the right to ask the student to submit it on time, then we owe this to students, that we give them the feedback on time. Otherwise there is no point in kind of taking all these efforts in designing the feedback. Nothing fuels learning than timely feedback and rich feedback from the faculty. And while we are delivering feedback, we need to kind of do it empathetically. A student should not lose his confidence, his or her confidence. She should not lose hope. Oh, I am bad, I cannot do the work, I cannot meet the expectation. When it's not about, ultimately, what do we want from students? We want them to get better. And I cannot get better if my work is not appreciated, if my efforts is not appreciated, and if my work is not recognized. So recognizing it without killing the confidence, giving them hope that they will be able. Some students um, progress slowly. Some students progress fast. So we need to understand that, and that empathy must be built into the way we give feedback. And written feedback, digital or physical, does only can get you there only so much, but what really works wonders is when you sit across the desk with the student, or the students sit with each other in their group and then discuss the work, the quality of their work, show them the mistakes, show them where they did extremely well, encouraging them, pointing it out, answering their questions, clarifying it, because students have to understand your feedback. We call this as feedback literacy. So the work that I have done, I come and ask for your feedback, and we must be open. Um, I mean, it must be inviting. We should not scare these students away. They will want to come and ask you and get more deeper understanding about the quality of the work that they have produced. So dialogue helps. And I cannot emphasize this more. I give it the biggest font size for this. We need to provide opportunities to use feedback within the course. If I give them feedback on how to write good arguments, then I owe it to them to give another opportunity to write another piece with sound arguments, taking from drawing lessons from the feedback that they have given. That gives them satisfaction. That completes the loop, and that needs to be built into. So we call that as closing the loop. They submit us, we give them an assignment, they make a submission, we evaluate, we give them feedback, and then we give them another assignment, and then we close the loop. Provide opportunity for student to use the feedback that they received. So what I do is, one project is all I can do in one course, but I break the project into 2 or 3 phases and evaluate these phases. So the feedback they get from submission of phase 1, they use it for doing it in phase 2. At the end of the course, it is one project that they submit, but they get multiple opportunities to use the feedback. And finally, we as instructors need to use this feedback to improve our teaching. It will give us valuable information on where students are struggling, what their pain points are, what they are not asking, what they are not understanding. And as he said, the ability and the opportunity for us to personalize teaching and instruction comes from feedback, and we need to use the feedback in order to better our own assessments. So let's come to the last but one segment, the challenges in assessments. Well, all this sounds good. Deep learning and formative assessments and feedback and all that is fine. But we know teachers are, overworking, loaded with administrative duties, research and publication expectations. There is, on the other side, class sizes are growing. And the program that I teach, MBA, it draws students from different backgrounds. I have a psychology major, I have a lawyer sitting in my class. I had even a dentist sitting in my class. I have a bunch of engineers. So how am I going to this is going to be really challenging, the logistics with the ever expanding workload of teacher. How can we find the time? There are only so many weeks or so many months in a term. What can I do? Is a very valid question. Most of us don't get teaching assistant, research assistant. That is a luxury only for premier institutions. But within the scope, what is it that we can do? But these are very real constraints, and we need to think about it. And that's the first bunch of challenge that I could think of. And the second one, equally important, but not much talked about in the public, is the culture of the institution itself, department or the school or whatever it is. If your school or if your institution is going to, it's not about, when I say you, my, I'm generalizing it. Basically, it's only a figure of speech. We are seeing this trend of institutions getting hooked to accreditation, and there is this ranking fever. And what is it that I can do inside with the faculty, inside the faculty? What is it I can ask my faculty to do that will improve my grade, my rank, my accreditation? So unfortunately, in this rat race, the essence of the true soul of a learning institution gets stampeded. We run all over it. But those institutions that value students' learning, that place students' understanding, learning in the center, and build their processes around this understanding of learning, those institutions, even though they are becoming an endangered species now, those are the ones that we should be looking up to for solutions, to understand how they are doing what we want to do and lessons to be learned. But this is a very real challenge facing all of us. And then it is the attitude of the instructor herself. If I am not willing, if I am not passionate about what I am doing, if I am not wanting to walk that extra mile, if I am going to look at my teaching as only as a means of my livelihood, and if I want to keep my time to the cash cow assignments of my job, then this cannot be achieved, because it is no easy feat. It's a huge ask. But at the end of the day, we are all teachers. The students come trusting what we have to say. When I stand in the dais and look down at the student, they are looking up at me, trusting that I will deliver them the truth. I do not know if I am given that ability, but that is what students, they look up to us, literally. So they look up to us. What is the return that we are giving? We have a moral responsibility. We have a professional responsibility when we become teachers. So that is a professional hazard. We have to overwork, but we need to introspect. Increasingly, there is a breed of faculty that allocates their time to only to those activities that would benefit them. I think we should also place students, we should place students in the center and then design our work around their learning. And the solution lies somewhere there. Introspection, reflection, and change in attitude. And finally, the design. This is the easiest of all. How do we design a course? How do we design our assessments? Can we get creative here? Can we get resourceful here? The constraints are all real. I have only 10 teaching weeks in a term. Within that, I need to do these cases. I need to make sure when the student walks out of my course, he or she will have a satisfactory level of ability to think critically, or to write effectively, or to think ethically. That is very real. And some of these logistics issue can be, if we get creative and resourceful, it could be tackled by intelligent design of courses and assessment. But that is a topic for a workshop. We cannot, I'm here only to point this out. So the point that I wanted to make is to only give you an overview of the stuff that we need to understand, where we are slipping in designing or executing these assessments, and to emphasize the fact that in spite of all the challenges that we as instructors in institutions face, we still have a mighty sword in our hands, which are assessments. So this is the last segment. I think I stopped at the right time and we still have time for discussions. So after which we can, I just want to kind of, before I open the floor for discussion, this is something that I feel all of us should, we feel that we understand this. This is a breed that we belong to, that we are the bridges. And, you know, a reflection of this attitude, there is an element of sacrifice in being a teacher. We are kind of something closer to a parent, and at whatever cost, even sometimes at the cost of my own time, comfort, and convenience, I need to place my students' learning in the center. And now we can discuss. If you have any observations, comments, or questions, I'm all ears to listen to you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for that wonderful session. That was really informative and helpful. I hope we can make use of this in our career ahead. So, thank you, ma'am. Now, the session is open for discussion. If you have any questions or queries, you can post it in the comment box, or you can switch on your mic and ask it.
Are we waiting for people to ask question, or am I not hearing anyone? Was the doubt I have. Okay. All right. I see a question in the chat box. Is it okay if I read and attempt to answer this?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. So Femi has written, as an educator in a higher learning education institution, due to the short semesters and time constraints, how we assess our students' performance in the classroom other than conducting examinations. True, Femi, that is a huge challenge. And that is where I would say the design of the assessments come. For example, in the courses that I teach, mine is not even semester, it is a trimester. I teach only out of 12 weeks, 2 weeks go for exam. I have only 10 instruction weeks. So what I do is, in the 5 modules, um, I I teach. I taught 3 courses. One was an operations management elective, which was completely focused on problem solving. So what I do is, my instruction strategy itself is built around the worksheets. So I distribute worksheets to them. I make them sit in the groups and work. I work with them. And since it is a smaller class, I could observe the way they work, the quality of questions they ask. So that becomes a kind of assessment for me. In another course, what I did is, as a pre-class reading, I give them videos to watch, and questions are embedded. And when students watch and answer the question, so that becomes another kind of assessment, where I don't do that assessment during the class time. Yet another course in services operations, I ask students to visit service businesses during their weekends. So, like, they walk into theater, malls, food, eatery, whichever way students normally spend their weekends. But I ask them to kind of use that as an opportunity to do a field-based project. So that also goes outside the class time. I don't take them for visits, they do it themselves. So these are the way. When you flip the class, give them the reading, give them the videos, give them the work to do, and come back, then that way you can save a lot of time. So these are the ways in which we do, but there are so many. I bet there are so many other ways we can do. These assessments need not be a long one, need not be a long, complicated ones. So they can be short assessment, which can still be very effective, and that can save a lot of classroom time. Yeah.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Raghunath. Yeah.
Yeah, good evening, ma'am. Myself, Raghunath from St. Lucius College, Department of Management Studies.
Good evening.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you very much, ma'am, for a wonderful session.
Thank you.
It was an eye-opening session, ma'am.
Thank you.
And one doubt I have related to the students' thought processing. So, how we can incorporate their thought processing in rendering knowledge to them?
Yeah, many times, we have this urge to think for the students, right? When I ask question, I wait for students. When the answer don't come, I rush in and fill that, right?
Okay,
See,
ma'am.
as a parent, what do we do when our children do not know how to do something? We go and teach them, right? We teach them how to do.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what. Unfortunately, I teach a PG course. At for most of my students, it's a terminal degree.
Okay.
They did their schooling, they did their UG, and then they come here. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, many of them do not know how to learn. They don't know how to take notes. They don't know how
Mm,
to organize a piece of writing. I think we
mm,
need to get a little patient and teach them how to do that. And they
mm,
appreciate it. They appreciate
mm.
it. They're shy to ask, because they think that we expect them to know this already. Yeah, they may. But then if we know that they do not know, I think as a teacher, we need to fill that gap. We need to
Okay.
teach them how to do that. So
Okay.
thought exercises, we need to incorporate that throughout. Ask them questions, make them think, prod them,
Oh,
ask them 100 questions until you get the answer that you want. They will think.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thank
Yes.
you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Welcome. I saw somebody raise the hand. Can I ask that person to? I don't see that here, but all right. I'll read the question from Jasmine Matthew. As a recent trend, we see that students are not at all interested in studies. How do we convince them about the relevance of self-learning and assessment? Oh, yeah. You know what, Jasmine? That is true. But I would like to kind of state this differently. Um, See, the studies is a loaded word, okay? What are students interested in? My students are interested in placements. My students are interested in good placements that get them 14 lakhs, 18 lakhs, 20 lakhs kind of placements they want. They want it in big companies, right? And what else they like? What are they interested in? They are interested in gadgets. They like to play with mobile. They like to watch movies, videos. So I think the study, the way we did, I don't know what age group you belong to, but I am a very senior. So when the way I studied and my age group people, my generation studied, is different from how these millennials, Gen Z people study. Their interests are different. And I think if we establish the relevance of the content of your course, and if we manage to present them in an interesting manner, using the tools and technology that they love to work with, I think this will not be a problem, right? That is what I am beginning to learn here. A lot of apps and a lot of EC assessments, and my biggest challenge here is convincing them that this is a course that is good, and establishing it, not simply talking about it, but establishing the fact that this content is going to help them get the job that they want. Once they understand the relevance, and once they know that it is their responsibility, at least they will agree that they have to do self regulated self-managed learning. Yeah, some are good at that, some are not, but at least you manage to convince them that they need to take up responsibility for their learning. I think we need to change our expectations also to suit the profile of the Gen Z and millennials. Yeah. Thank you, Jasmine. Did I see a hand raise? I'm sorry, I don't know how to check that. And okay, it was Raghunath. Okay, he had put his hand down. All right. So it's 7:05. Professor, are we
Yeah,
good?
I
Yeah.
think there's one more question.
Acha, okay. Sorry.
Can you see that from Vinod?
Yeah, we don't. Thank you, Professor. If we keep increasing the number of continuous assessments, do you think learning outcomes will be better embedded? Well, that is subjective. I think it depends on the program, it depends on the batch, it depends on the subject, the course. I think if we do it mindfully, the number doesn't matter there. But what I feel is you need to have a minimum number of assignments that would, the continuous assessments that is required to close the loop. As I told you, I gave a feedback for a submission, and I should also give another opportunity within the at least another opportunity within the course to use that feedback and better the improvement. When the students see that they are improving, when they feel that they are improving, nothing succeeds like a success, that kind of builds up. That has a potential. And if your course allows more than 2, why not? The more they practice something, the better they become. It is called reinforcement, right? So we introduce a competency, we tell them how to do it, and then we give them multiple opportunities to do, then it'll only make them better. Only thing is we need to make sure that the feedback reaches them on time. For example, in my case, I I teach a course called Cases in Supply Chain Management. In the course, I ask students to do 8 case studies in the course. So 10 weeks, 8 case studies. So they get 8 opportunities. Whereas students could learn, the fact is that they submit one report, but I evaluate 25 reports every time they submit. So you need to kind of make that balance work, because at the end of the day, if it could be an overkill, if we don't give them the feedback on time, if they don't give the evaluation on time, that will beat the purpose. So that care must be taken. Otherwise, I think the more the merrier. Thank you, Professor.
Any more questions? Are we done?
Thank you, sir.
So I think we can wrap up the question answer session, and the Google forms are actually posted in the panel, and I request you all to fill up the feedback forms. And I request you all to switch on your videos for a moment so that we can get a good photo of this session.
Photos are taken, ma'am. You can continue.
Thank you. So now I invite Ms. Reshma Ma'am, Assistant Professor from the PG Department of Commerce, for delivering the vote of thanks.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
You are. Thank you.
Okay. Respected resource person and esteemed participants, dear faculty members and colleagues. It's my privilege and honor to propose the vote of thanks on this momentous occasion of concluding our FDP. First and foremost, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to our river resource person, Dr. Hemamala ma'am, who has generously shared her knowledge, expertise, and insights with us during this program. Your guidance and wisdom have been invaluable in enriching our understanding and enhancing our skills of effective teaching and assessment. We are truly fortunate to have had the opportunity to learn from you, ma'am. Thank you so much. I would like to extend our sincere thanks to our dear principal, Dr. Chakojo Spitzer, and the St. Chavara Center for Teaching and Excellence in Education and Innovation, IQAC of St. Aloysius College, for their unconditional support and resources that have made this FTP possible. Your commitment is greatly appreciated. A special thanks note goes to our all participants. Your active engagement and enthusiasm have been the driving force behind the success of this program. We also express our gratitude to the supporting staff who have worked tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure the smooth functioning of this FDP. Last but not least, we thank to our management for their vision and commitment to the faculty development and support to conducting program like this. Truly inspirational. As we lead this program, let us carry the knowledge and inspiration gained forward to in our educational journey, and we may continue to strive for excellence in our roles as educators and mentors. Once again, thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you,
It's
Lisa. Thank you,
uh,
Rishma. Thank you, Chako.
it's time for us to wrap up the session. I would like to thank each one of you once again for being a part and parcel of this program and making it a huge success. Thanking you once again. Thanking you all. You can all leave the meeting.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
sir.